Hello everybody, it's Wes from Data Ministries. I thought I'd make this video because it's rather important to talk about. Um, I think a life lesson I've learned, especially recently, and something I've had to reconnect with, so to speak, was the genetic fallacy problem a lot of people have with um, debating one another is a good way to put it. This is going to be a quick little couple minute video. It's not going to be anything long. But we should not be dismissing people's claims because of who they are, or what they've claimed before that, or other claims they've made, or any aspect about them that disqualifies what they're saying. We should always be willing to take lessons from a tradition that's different than ours, whether it be religious, whether it be socioeconomic, whatever else it might be. We should always be willing to hear people's views, even if we disagree with who they are or what they're doing. We should always be willing to turn an ear to listen to them, even if what they generally do is wrong. They may have something edifying to give you. And in the same way, I thought about this recently. Just because someone, let's say for example, is a math teacher, and that math teacher has, whenever he clocks out of his shift from the work at his school or whatever university he's at, leaves the school and goes to go commit a murder. Murders somebody, maybe murders an entire family, who knows. And he shows up at his job the next day. And he says, "Okay, class, so what I want to tell you all today is that I've committed something horrible. I have done something atrocious. I've murdered somebody." And after he gives his big speech to his class, just a thought experiment I had the other day, he goes into tells the class, "All right, so now that I'm done telling you guys this announcement, I'm going to start teaching math now, like I usually do." And he says, "Okay, 2 plus 2 equals 4. And one of his students tries to step in the middle of his lecture and says, "No, it's not. You murdered somebody." You see my issue with the genetic fallacy. Something that's been extremely edifying to me since the beginning of my Christian life is being willing to hear people that disagree with and see how they can edify me. Maybe there's a way that they're saying something that I'm not. And the reason why I bring up this story is oftentimes when we are criticizing one another, we do the whole genetic fallacy thing where we say, "You're this and you're that, so therefore you're wrong on this subject." And in the same way, the student in this example that I mentioned made a genetic fallacy error when trying to rebut what the professor was saying. Maybe the professor did do these things. Maybe the professor actually did murder these people or this family, whatever it was, the hypothetical, whatever. But yet, the mathematical statement he gave was correct. And that's a hard truth for a lot of people to swallow. Independent of who they are or what they've said in the past, does not disqualify the truth of what they're actually saying now, or a proposition they've made now. In the same way, let's just take a very obvious example because I come from the Protestant perspective myself. If I'm listening to a Roman Catholic talking, and I hear them say, "You see, the Trinity is true because of John 8, John 17, John 1, Matthew 7, Matthew 12, and so forth. The list goes on." I cannot then go and say, "You're wrong because you believe in the sinless perfection of Mary." You know why I can't do that? Because that's a genetic fallacy. To say they're wrong on this one thing, therefore they're wrong on everything that they do. This is something a lot of fundamentalists do, who look at anything other than who they are and say you're wrong because you're this. You're wrong because of this label. You're wrong because of this label. And ironically, it's the exact same label that people, when it comes to, and I'm not a big into politics guy, so I don't really, look into it a whole lot. But when I was an atheistic, agnostic, leftist, whatever else you want to call me back before 2021, oftentimes when you're trying to debate somebody of a different political party, in order to try to shoot down their arguments, you say you identify as this, so therefore your argument is invalid because you're this, whatever. But their identity, even if they were that identity, you were to shoot down at them, you were to be able to shout at them or say, you're this, you're that, you're that, therefore your argument's invalid. No, it's not. In the same way, in the example I gave, the professor is not wrong on 2 + 2 = 4 because he murdered somebody. The statement is still true, 2 + 2 = 4, independent of him having killed somebody. And so, in the same way, we should approach even religious debates. And in the same way, like that's what I'm saying. The Roman Catholic thing I mentioned was because there's something. Well, there are a lot of things that you can reach. Even reaching across the aisle to talk to the person of a different denomination to hear their views on stuff, they may be seeing stuff that you're not. Plenty of times in the book of Proverbs, you'll hear the wise man turns his ear to listen and loves reproof. The fool will ignore and will be prideful and ignore the reproof and discipline. And, hold on, I got a text just now. So, be willing to turn your ear to hear. And maybe there is something edifying the person next to you has to say, even if they disagree with you. The Roman Catholic is not wrong in the Trinity because he's a Roman Catholic. He is actually right on the Trinity as something we agree on as brothers and sisters in the faith. And that's why I continue to this day to continue to consume liturgies and books from other denominations and from the early church fathers and from different reformers and neo-reformers and proto-reformers, because we are united under Christ. And so if we have something to edify us that's probably being heard from another person who's been reproved in the same issue, we can be reproved and edified in the same way. So this sounds uncomfortable to a lot of fundamentalists who are like the IFB, who come from like the denominations like the Church of Christ, all that stuff. Turn your ear to hear. That's the constant theme of Proverbs. The fool pushes away reproof and edification. The wise man enjoys being corrected. And maybe there's something that you're wrong on, that someone of a different denomination could correct you on. That therefore is being edified by someone you disagree with. That is the entire point of fellowship with our fellow believers. Is not to shout down and say you're a heretic because you hold to a different confession than I do, but it's to say I can lovingly edify you in the same way that only a pride swelleth up within a man, and knowledge brings in pride, but love is edifying. And only in that can we actually have genuine fellowship. The whole witch hunt, heretic finders, they're not really that helpful, if I'm being honest. The real help to the church now, especially in 2025, I have a nice cup of hot cocoa here, although it's the middle of summer. It's August of 2025. Imagine that. In that, the real help comes from those who want to actually correct and edify, not the ones who are heretic hunters. Those are not very helpful. Yes, the Mormons are heretics. We know this. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they are not of the faith that we're in. But to seek to tear them down and say, you're wrong, you're going to hell. The better way to approach a person that's not of the faith, and just listen to me, the better way to do that is to show them graciously how they're wrong. Not just to say you are wrong. That's something to include in there, yes. They're wrong. But why they're wrong is even more important. Because if they don't know why they're wrong, then they won't know that they're wrong. Don't you get it? If you just shout you're wrong, They won't understand why you're saying you're wrong. So instead, approach it with the 1 Peter 3:15. I will continue to shout this from the rooftops. Give a reason for the hope that's within you with gentleness, love, and respect. And only that will bring and win people over to Christ. Not the whole shouting heretic hunter thing. That's not helpful. So anyway, I thought I would mention that. Don't give a genetic fallacy to every person you talk to, because maybe a person you disagree with has something to actually give you insight on. Actually, that's probably the reason why I've had to do a lot of self-reflection, because maybe I'm wrong in my own pride. And maybe the entire point of the Christian walk is humility, and being corrected through a humble ear who wants to listen and be corrected. So, I love you all, and I will talk to you all soon. Data Ministries. I'll probably do more formats like this later with recording. I like this better than I like the whole behind the other mic thing. This using a Chromebook to record is a lot more fun than using a gigantic PC that I never even touched to use to record. So, love you all, and peace out.